with the presidential petition in the offing, we need to understand, are there grounds for a presidential petition, and what are the grounds? What options for Azimio One Kenya Alliance? To take us through this conversation is none other than Professor Ben Sihanya, who is a constitutional lawyer. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, let's start off there. Are there grounds for a presidential petition?
Yes.
What are these grounds? Maybe take us through that. What are the grounds?
And indeed, viewers, the grounds and the issues are clearer than in 2017. In fact, when we started 2017, it was more complex because there were but 2022 are clearer, and one may find so many. But maybe we just do probably three or so. One of the key issues is that the Constitution requires that an election should be simple, accurate, verifiable, transparent, and accountable. And then the election is, especially a presidential election, which we are focusing on, is both about process and the numbers, the figures, the votes, outcome. And that's what Raila 2017 emphasized. So the main issue there, one of the main issues therefore there is the question of process. The process of tallying, the process of verification. That one alone is an issue. And there wasn't transparency, verify and accountability in the tallying and verification. And the evidence also that has been there in the media as well. A related process question is the one regarding the role of the commissioners. Because the Constitution, Article 138.3, as read with Article 138.10, talk about declaration being the final stage, and which must come from a tallying process and a verification process in which the commission or commissioners, commission means commissioners, of course oversighting the staff working on this. And here we already have evidence of 4 commissioners who are a majority saying that the process was opaque. In fact, to use constitutional language, it was not transparent, it was not accountable, it was not verifiable. And I think that's one of the main issues this year, because even in the past, even in 2007, 2013, 2017, there was always talk that some commissioners did not necessarily agree with what was being done, but they decided to hang together. But in 2022, 4 commissioners who
pulling apart.
Absolutely, who have read Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity, are saying we are not going the way the chairman is going, the chairperson is going with the commission, and there is no transparency, there is no accountability. So we cannot be bound to do things which are contrary to the Leadership and Integrity Code, etc., and also their own act on this issue. So the issue of role of the commissioners vis-a-vis the role of the chair. The other issue is about the question of verifiability of forms 34A, 34B, 34C, and there has been a lot of debate on that. Actually, that the materials which were in the portal are not necessarily what was also what ought to have been uploaded. And in some cases, this is about a question of verifiability. Here is both qualitative verifiability and quantitative verifiability. Quantitative means that the numbers, the actual numbers, there are so many top-ups for the candidate that Mr. Chebukati preferred. He sponsored his client. So that is that's really a major problem. Probably another problem here would be the question of the total votes cast. The question of these issues of what was the number of total registered voters? Let me start there. What was the total number of registered voters? What were the total total valid votes cast? Or you can say total the votes cast generally, but then the valid vis-a-vis those which were rejected. And that is not very, very clear. when Chebukati was filling his Form 34C, and again the commissioner spoke to that, you are giving percentages which actually even exceed 100%. So the moment it exceeds 100%, you can't tell us that you are rounding off. It must be 100%, not more than that. So those are some of the problems. For example, the
four issues that you have outlined.
At least four. There are so many.
At least four.
Yes.
So we go with the at least four: the transparency or the lack of transparency and accountability, looking at the process and the votes, and the process of tallying, lacking verification in the tallying. Then also the role of the commission. They're pointing at 4 commissioners who are, dissenting.
And there are majority.
Yes, and
4/7.
4/7. The majority dissenting with the declaration made there by the IEBC chair, as well as the verifiability of Form 34As and Form 34Bs, as well as the issue of, the number work, total votes, total number of cast votes vis-a-vis the registered and such. Basically, you're throwing a question into Form 34C. That's the main 4 things we have heard that you've picked top of your mind.
Yes.
That could actually, or rather, are forming ground of this presidential petition.
Yes.
Now, to also set the ball rolling, maybe this might have informed the move that Azimio took earlier on, and we just want to recap the decision that was made by Azimio there when at the KICC, where they met their leaders and such, is that now they're going to be petitioning the Supreme Court there to order a retelling of the Form 34As. Let's have a listen in before now we delve into the matters of the presidential petition there.
The Supreme Court has kicked off preparations in anticipation for a presidential petition ahead of the 7 days deadline. The court has already activated its security mechanism on the protocol that will be followed to ensure the process is smooth. The hearing of the petition will be held at the Milimani Court Ceremonial Hall, and only a limited number of lawyers and litigants will be allowed to access the venue. Only accredited media will be allowed into the venue as part of streamlining the number of people admitted to the hall.
And not all media people, there are those ones who have been given an okay to be here. The other people will monitor from wherever.
Those who want to petition the presidential results have 5 days left to do so, as 2 days have already lapsed since the announcement of the results on Tuesday. The High Court in the meantime has squashed the Supreme Court's presidential petition amendment rules, barring the public from discussing the petition until it is heard and determined. In a judgment delivered by Justice Mugure Thande, the court found the rules to be unconstitutional, citing lack of public participation in their creation. The court further said the move usurped authority by Parliament. Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
Now, that is just a clear indication that the other arm of government, which is the judiciary, it is ready to take on its mandate there in as far as the presidential petition is concerned, if it is filed. Now, here in studio, I have none other than Professor Ben Sihanya, who is going to take us through this conversation in regard to the presidential petition. Now, you have highlighted 4 areas, and now let's pick it up from there. The issue of transparency and accountability. One would argue that IEBC has continued to preach that it conducted and it will conduct a free and fair election, and even they put up the Form 34As up there for anyone who had the capacity to tally, including the media, to do so. They would say that they have ensured that it was transparent. And I hear you beg to differ on that.
Absolutely. There are so many problems. If you look at the material on the portal, there are some which are actually blank, or at least at one stage they were blank. There were some which did not have the appropriate signatures. There were some which had issues about what you would call the appropriate security features, etc. Which is a qualitative process. There's the issue of who actually uploaded them, who witnessed the uploading, etc., etc. And there was acknowledgement of at least 200 hacking, either attempts or in some cases was there successful hacking. Those are some of the issues, and I think even when we were at Bomas, some of the IEBC officials, at least one of them was arrested for colluding with the a candidate who was favored by IEBC chair. And there was evidence that this person was really colluding with some of these.
Well, that is a matter that is still under investigation. We're yet to get to the bottom of that. But now on the issue of transparency, some would argue that because the Form 34As were already there, well, that is a form of transparency. And remember that the declaration made at the polling center using that Form 34A is actually final. That even what came to the National Tallying Center was a verification, and the declarations made there then were final.
Yeah, so 34A, and I was, as you pointed out much earlier, I was in Manyara from the case, from the High Court through the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court. And that case is the authority, and of course this was also implemented in Raila 2017. That case is the main authority for the argument that the results which have been given at the polling station level, Form 34A, are final, and they can only be varied by what is called an election court, in other words, an election petition. And of course, subject to the rule on arithmetic or clerical errors, which any human being can make. But when there were fundamental errors in these forms, some of which were discovered and corrected, some were not corrected, when the four commissioners are saying, and there's a lot of evidence for anybody who cares, that they did not, for example, verify and tally. We did not, and I was a verification clerk, we did not tally and verify all from all the constituencies.
Now let me bring that. Let me come around.
And they didn't announce from all the constituencies.
And they did not before.
So that itself can't be. There can't be transparency there and accountability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you'd argue there's a question I put: who uploaded these particular forms online? That was the work of the IEBC officials, and the party agents were required to sign upon, or rather sign on those particular documents. So if there were errors, why did these party agents continue to append their signatures into these particular forms?
Oh, in some cases, actually, there was serious problems, including the fact that in so many, and a lot of our observers and agents have already spoken to that, those who are candid, that they were supposed to witness very closely the uploading and even get a snapshot, and that's part of the protocol from IEBC. True. Many were denied that. Many were denied the form that they ought to have been given, or the one that was supposed to be pinned on at the polling station. In so many polling, that can't be transparency. That can't be accountability. So there are glaring differences when it comes to the uploading of the Form 34, and maybe this is why Azimio is actually calling for a retally of the Form 34As. Yes, and I think in so many areas, especially in Central, you would see that there is a lot of high voter turnout for purposes of the presidential election in respective constituencies vis-a-vis in the other seats, and yet everybody is supposed to be given 6 ballot papers. And in the event that you don't want to vote for the others, it would be declared as maybe a spoiled or rejected or something like that. So why is that discrepancy coming from?
Those are
and that was also a problem in
2017, and that's where I want to go, because we had, as a media, we put this question forth to IEBC well before this particular process began. So what happens was that question of why are we having a number of people in a particular area voting more for the president and not for the other seats? And this was a response, and I'd want to paraphrase it or even quote unquote. They said, actually, Wafula Chebukati indicated that there's 6 contenders. Each will get 6, each voter is going to get, and in the event that you do not want to vote for one candidate or another, you're still expected to fold your leaflet and drop it into the box.
Leave it there.
And leave it there.
Yes.
So maybe that's
and it should be accounted for.
And
at the end of the day, the votes cast, total votes cast, should be the same, or at least if you also use the counterfoil to really check with all the ballot papers that have been given, and therefore some either are validly cast or some are stray or some, but then in totality they should be the same. for all the 6 seats.
Now, away from the transparency, now let's delve into the issue. The other issue that you have raised as grounds to have this petition is the role of the commission. What we need to understand is the role of the IEBC chair as the president's returning officer, as the chair of IEBC, vis-a-vis the role of the IEBC itself, IEBC commissioners. We have seen a push and pull there, with 4 of them, a majority, as you rightfully put, dissent from the results that were read by the president's arrow, that's the chair of Wafula Chebukati. Make us understand the role between the chair of the IEBC, as prescribed by the law, and the role of the commissioners.
Fine, thanks. So, Viva's Article 138(3) of the Constitution provides very clearly that the tallying and verification, and then followed by declaration, shall be done by the IEBC. That is, and they say tallying, verification, and declaration.
Yes.
And IEBC is the commission in its entirety, as led by the commissioners, including the chair. The chair is not the commission. The chair is part of the commission. And then Article 138(10) talks about then the chairperson making the final declaration. And so declare is used twice, with respect to the role of the commission, as commission, as a body corporate, and then with the role of the chair. And then from there, and please note that the Constitution doesn't use the language of national returning officer, which is the main area now whereby those who support these irregularities and inconsistencies and constitutional non-compliance are now hiding under. And then from there you come to the IEBC Act, and especially the schedule, which then says that whenever the commission is making its decisions in terms of its powers, functions, and business, well, it must have a quorum of at least 3, and that's the quorum of 3 is a considered issue, which BBI Supreme Court also said, and that's okay. There's no problem with that. I've had some Kuzurumamonga saying that Azimio should now fear because they are the ones who advanced through BBI that the quorum is 3. There's no problem there. It's 3, quorum is 3. But then the same schedule says the commission ought to make its decisions either unanimously, as much as possible, through all consensus. But in the event there is no unanimity or consensus, then it will be by a majority. And surely, viewers, 4/7 is the majority, by a majority.
Now let me take you to that point, Prof. Is there a provision of law that creates a guideline in the event what happened? Is there a provision of law that says if we do not agree unanimously, or if we do not get to a majority quorum, is there a provision for law moving forward what the chair should have done in this particular situation? Because yes, he had 3 people there, the 4 had dissented. Is there a provision in law?
Absolutely. That is what I'm reading, viewers, and this is the volume that I've done, put together on the laws on elections compendium. That is what I'm saying is the schedule to the IEBC Act, saying that for you to make a decision that is valid, constitutional, and legitimate, it must, and procedural, it must be based on a 3-member quorum. That's okay, because 3 for commissions is the basic for all commissions in the Constitution. And then number 2, that schedule to IEBC says, because every commission, every board has its own rules of quorum. We start with quorum, the smallest number of people who can conduct any business. So that minimum is 3, and for all commissions in Kenya, it's 3 under the Constitution, at least 3. But then, from quorum, the minimum, you get to the idea of how can you make a decision? What if? So that's why when IBC was just 3 members, they still constituted a quorum. But that also meant that they had all to be present to make any decision.
They had to be physically present?
All to make, because that was the minimum. No, when they were 3. But when they are more than 3, their own schedule to the IEBC Act says, then you make a decision by unanimously, consensus, or by a majority of the members of the commission, which means that if you are more than 3, then 3 can't make a decision. It must be a majority, you're not just 3. If you are 7, in other words, which now they are, you can only make a decision unanimously or by a majority, which majority now means you can't split human beings into fractions. So it is at least 4 over 7 would make a decision. And therefore, Chebukati's wing or Chebukati himself making some of these unilateral decisions, because it is emerging that some of those decisions were unilateral.
Those were allegations that are being made by Serena 4, as we refer to them, the 4 IEBC commissioners who said that actually they do not take part. They found that opaque. They are not part and parcel of what was
And indeed, they were not there at the so-called declaration.
So them being absent physically when that declaration was being made by IBC chair, the returning officer, presidential returning officer, makes it, or rather waters down the role of the commissioner, or even waters down the validity of the announced presidency.
The main issue that actually makes it an unconsidered decision, irregular decision, illegal and unlawful decision, is the fact that they did not participate in the decision making. Take it this way. Apart from which we have read Article 138.3, 138.10, we have gone to the IBC schedule. There is another regulatory issue. Chairman Chebukati, I was a verification clerk at Bomas. He developed a protocols on how to do tallying and verification, which he signed. And those protocols, which there later on was varied a bit, provided for the role of the commission, for the role of the chair, for the role of the presidential election candidates or their agents, because many times they don't have to go, so they can work through agents. And therefore, that protocol also is important because it provided for the role of the commission as, or qua, commission lawyers would say qua, QUA, as commission, commission as commission, so not just
as a
the chairperson.
As a chair.
So why did he breach those protocols? He can't do these things unilaterally. It's not about, the commission is not about him.
Now, Professor, am I hearing you saying that the IBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, making the declaration that he did it a little bit prematurely?
Yeah, it was both irregular and premature. Because premature for various reasons.
He was time-bound.
Time-bound Tuesday, was it coming? They had a 7-day constitutional timeline. What was the hurry? It reminds us of midnight swearing in 2007 by candlelight. What was the hurry here? And in this case, the Constitution has stipulated very, very clearly that you have to do it within a 7-day timeline, and you have not even announced all the other constituencies. And in any event, if there is a very, very good reason not to announce because there are practical, clear difficulties, you could go to court to what we call expanding time, enlarge time, as we call it in law. The court can help you enlarge time. You don't do an unconstitutional thing and then go and tell us that I have a deadline.
Of law.
Yes.
Talking about the provision of law, there's a question of us. Now, the commission did not unanimously agree, and as you've said, in terms of did not lacked quorum in your argument. Then, is there a provision of law? What would he have done then, given the timelines? Is there a provision of law that says if you cannot agree unanimously, yes, and if you do not form quorum, what next? Yeah,
that's mainly the schedule.
What next?
Which provides like this, the practical application of it. This is that you verify and you make sure and tally and verify among with the agents, with the commission staff, and then at the commission level, you call a meeting and say that this is the data that we have. These are the votes we have, and then you say, let's work towards a quorum, and let's work towards a consensus or unanimity. And then in case there is any dissenting voice, or dissenting voices, then you say, then let's take a vote. And I want to correct one thing. Some continual rumormongers are saying this, that commissioners voting on the question of tallying and verification means that they are overriding all our votes, yet we had voted. No, absolutely not. They are voting that we have verified and these are the numbers. They are not supposed to create new numbers, which it appears Chebukati was creating. So they are not overriding. In fact, it is us, the people, and through the Constitution, who gave the Commission that power. It's the same way we have given judges power. These days, a judge can sit in court in an election petition and say that while it was said that A won the election, based on tallying and recount, tallying, scrutiny, those are words which are, we find that it's actually B who won. That doesn't mean that it's the judges who have voted for this. No, but they have the power.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Now, because as you're working towards a close, I'd want to know is, the 4 commissioners and their utterances in terming as the process opaque and distancing themselves from the results and the declaration that the IBC chair Wafula Chebukati made, is it going to play a major role in the presidential petition? Is it going to add value to it?
It adds a lot of value, but the presidential election petition depends on what at the time of filing are regarded as, what I was telling you need not be the grounds. You get my point? Because
so what
there are so many grounds that lawyers can choose so many other and even ignore these and still succeed. This is a very clear case. It's a very glaring case. This election was conducted with a lot of impunity and arrogance. Yes.
So says Prof. Now, we saw the election observers give the process a clean bill of health. And we also saw this similarly happen in 2017. We even had them saying that this is a process that needs to be emulated at least across the East African community. In regard to what has happened in the last 1 day or two, are you seeing observers? We are waiting for their report. It comes after the election. What are you likely to see from there? Are they going to engage on their word?
I've seen observers give some of their preliminary reports actually. Preliminary, but then they follow, and I think many times of the preliminary is like standard. Most of it is very standard, and even when some of them are speaking, it's just a standard language. This language used to go like this, and I think it's not departed very much from that. The pre-election process, preparatory process, the voting were peaceful, and generally the electoral process was passed the standards according to African standards. That's I used to see African standards, and you see.
So you're likely to see the same.
So you see that kind of language. But let's just focus on this issue of observers. Three-pronged argument for me. Number one, some of the observers, like even Elog, when they were speaking on TV, we saw them and we say, "God save Kenya, God save, save them."
Are you expecting a divergent view, or will they stick? Or what is likely to happen?
Three things. That one, they even acknowledge that some of them even acknowledge that they observed maybe just about 99 or very small fraction of the polling stations or the processes. And in any event, none of them sat through the whole process.
So in your view, that they may not have, they may having a myopic
Number
view.
One, because it's not even just saying that we sat somewhere and we tallied and we find that the numbers are okay. Elections, Raila 2017 told us and still tells us up to today, election is about both process and outcome. And therefore, they did not observe enough about process to make those conclusions. Number two is that there is the question of 2017. I think this is my last point on this issue. There is the question of 2017, where the observers were actually unanimous, if you'll recall. And what did the Supreme Court say? Nullified. So observers, please, let us, I know many times some of them do it from a political angle that we want to move on, and that attitude of moving on is a major issue that observers look at.
Now, as we bring this to a close, where we stand right now, would want to know, we have seen what happened in 2013 and 2017, and some divergent focus in terms of the process. In 2013, the petition went after the vote. In 2017, it focused on the process. Given where we are in 2022, what is the likely direction that the presidential petition is going to take? Are we going to go after the process and the tally? Because there's a question that was put forth to the 4 commissioners by the media holding during that particular press briefing. Do they have alternate results than what has been put forth by IEBC? They could not answer. And this situation where maybe there's a provision that maybe the alleged counties or constituencies where the tally had not been uploaded or mentioned or announced did not have requisite numbers to change the outcome. And IEBC chair went forth to make his declaration. Those 2 areas.
Well, whenever, I think 3-pronged response to that, whenever number one, we keep repeating this, that election is about process and it's about numbers and outcome. By Odinga 2013, that's now the law. Number 2, if the process was not followed and the numbers are also very problematic as the evidence is emerging. Number 3, the process, including the involvement of commissioners, but also the involvement of agents in various stages of this process. Number 3, there is this problem of if Mr. Chebukati, as you've hypothesized, found that the numbers were sufficient to cross the threshold of 50% plus 1, a situation which would be similar but not identical to 2002. We need to be reminded that actually Kivuitu, Mr. Samuel Kivuitu, declared candidate Mwai Kibaki as the winner before all the physical forms were in Nairobi. And this is partly because it was a 3-2 kind of situation. I think 30% to 60%. And if whatever had not been tallied would not make a difference. And you declare so. But again, you don't declare it as chairperson alone. It is a decision that made by the commission. And here we are saying, and they have said in public that, and we know that they were not part of that decision. And the Chebukati did not come and tell us that, the threshold has been passed at 50% plus 1, and that whatever constituencies we have not announced, in any event, they are supposed to announce from all constituencies.
So did he have a prerogative to actually give the details as you come to a close? Did he have the prerogative to give the details before making that declaration?
He had a duty, not just those details from him, which he are not there in 34C, but as a commission, it's a corporate decision. It's not an individual decision. The commission is not, Chebukati is not a commissioner. However wrong he might be.
So we have been speaking to none other than Professor Ben Sihanya there, just a constitutional lawyer, giving us an in-depth look into what may be the grounds of the presidential petition that is in the offing. Their issue of transparency and insisting that when it comes to a petition, you not only look at the process, you look at the process as well as the outcome. You have been watching Prime Edition on KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead.